It's time to talk about the Exchange operating system. You ready to go? I want you to think about this. What if you had an operating system? And whether you're bringing a group together to learn, to build relationships, to build a community, what if there was a proven framework that could unlock that learning, connection, belonging at a speed and scale? Most events, most meetings, most trainings fail because they focus on content delivery instead of experience design. And when you understand the three levers that shape a great convening, everything will change. In this video, I'll introduce you to our operating system. This is a framework used by global conferences, leadership teams, change agents of every size and type to design these transformational experiences. By the end, I hope that you have at least one practical takeaway from each element of our operating system to make your next event, workshop, or meeting far more powerful. So I'm going to draw a picture, if that's okay, and talk about the three levers of conscious convening, okay? Now, a lot of folks who come through our various workshops and trainings, they initially believe that we are teaching them how to facilitate, which is true, but it's incomplete. Because in order to really create a powerful experience, we also have to have as much, if not even more, interest in how to design experiences. And even before we design, there's a very specific process that we use to initiate in how we shape the purpose and how we purposefully invite participants to these gatherings. So a lot of folks, when they plan a gathering, they're focusing on logistics, speakers, schedules, content. But the most important factor is not actually what happens on the stage. It's what happens between people. And that's why these levers end up really mattering. Let's break each one of them down. And I want to give you one simple tool that you can use with each of these levers. So let's talk about that initiate phase for a moment, right? You know, most events move into designing and eventually leading themselves without a lot of thought compared to what is really possible. And I want to give you an example of initiating a gathering far more purposefully. So we do a lot of work online. We host many large gatherings online. To give you an idea, we've hosted well over 500 just in the last 3 or 4 years. I can tell you, because we can observe and measure it, over 95% of cameras are on and people are fully engaged. Now you might say, well, that sounds nice, because that might also lead to some other positive benefits. And how did you get people to be present and engaged? Well, one of the lessons that we've learned, and this has everything to do with how we initiate a conscious convening, is that the culture of a gathering does not begin when people walk in or log in to that gathering. It begins with the earliest invitation, the earliest touch points. Now, in our world, if you come to one of our trainings or certifications, you will find that we often ask you ahead of time to agree to something very simple. Typically, our agreement is really, are you going to be present or not, right? Because it's not just for us, but mostly for you, the participant. Presence in our world is not a high bar. That's the entry point so that everything else good can happen. So ask yourself, are you getting people's attention with your invitations? Don't forget, we live in a world where we are inundated with notifications. So the way we invite people's got to get attention. It's got to create alignment between how we're going to interact and what they expect, and maybe even offer a chance for them to agree. That's just one thought exercise around how we initiate a conscious convening. Let's talk about design for a moment. My invitation for you is to think about designing engagements where the first question that you ask is not what content will we teach, but what conversations do we want to have happen? You see, the gatherings that really have this figured out are starting with what are the conversations, and then they're bringing the right content in and around those conversations so they actually work together. The best gatherings are architected for interaction at the center, because people don't really learn through passive consumption. They learn through connection to the ideas, but the activation through talking about these ideas with each other. Here's a practical takeaway. consider using a 3-to-1 ratio. For every 30 minutes of content at most, create at least 10 minutes of structured peer dialogue and active learning. At the end of a keynote, have 3 to 5 minutes for participants to pause and contemplate what they're learning, what they're going to commit to, what questions or challenges this content brings up. Right? This simple shift will boost retention, participation, and invite participants to feel like co-creators, not just attendees, where now the audience becomes the teachers, the room becomes the stage. And if you're wondering, well, how do I design and lead these conversations? In our next video, I'll give you some examples of the questions that always prompt the conversation. So really the first question we ask when we design a gathering are, what are the most important questions to bring into the room because of the conversations those will lead to, and what will be the right content to precede and intersperse and follow up all of these critical conversations. It's a new way of thinking about event design. I want to just share a practical reflection on facilitation. It may be obvious by now that one of the missing responsibilities in so many convenings is a professionally trained facilitator. So whether or not you bring in somebody who's certified or changed in the exchange approach or any other methodology, I would encourage you to give reverence to somebody playing the role of really integrating the dance between content and conversation in a room, right? And here's a practical takeaway when it comes to facilitation. It's the importance of having a respect and a reverence for the structure that is needed for a room to have effective conversations. Let me give you an example. A great conversation typically needs 3 things. Number 1 is a very carefully designed question to give to the room. Now, we have entire universities exploring the art and science of question design because everything we do centers around it. In the next video, I'll give you some teachings to use right away. But consider questions need to be accessible, right? Not overcomplicated, and they need to be relevant. Ideally, they're also generative of ideas. But when we present a question, we also need to understand how important it is to invite a room to pause, to reflect literally for a moment, to contemplate the question before they have a conversation, to meet people where they're at in terms of walking into rooms overly stimulated, dysregulated, distracted, under stress. A great remedy for the global pandemic of reactivity is reflection. Too many gatherings do not have moments to contemplate meaningful questions, which then leads into a well-designed conversation. Even the way we invite participants to converse will make it very clear the opportunity for structure, how much time they give so that everybody's voice can be heard equally in the conversation. Maybe even some simple steps on how they reflect back, appreciate, or even synthesize learnings from their examples that they share. And then finally, after the question, the conversation, we bring voices into a room. Now that's a whole bundle of learning and teaching in and of itself, but I'll just suggest this. The most important learning moments are the ones where the learning is coming back into the room, not from the stage, but from the audience. Facilitation is about structures that liberate energy and information flowing through a room. Okay, now we've given you just a little bit to think about around our operating system, how you initiate, how you design, how you facilitate, to hopefully invite your gatherings to be maybe a little, if not a lot more engaging. But there's really one more secret, if we can call it that, to unlocking learning, connection, and belonging. And in the next final video, I'm going to give you some examples of practical questions that can change the moment, that can change the entire meeting. We'll talk about the art and science of question design and how one question can spark breakthroughs. If you're ready to elevate the way that you lead, teach, and convene, let's keep going. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.